Obamagate. Yeah, that's a more interesting one. When I was a kid, I remember reading about Watergate, and the scandal of Watergate was that a U.S. president was spying on his political opponents, and then there was a cover up. Now we have a situation where a U.S. president uses U.S. institutions to spy on the opposing political party. And you can say, well, there was legitimate reasons for it or not, but you'd have to imagine that such a thing would be a pretty sensitive affair. And it wasn't really treated this way. It was done through the FISA process, and what we've discovered is FISA in general is, and we've known this for a long time, is a just horrible mechanism for actually having checks and balances for oversight. And nobody cared about it because we use FISA on people living in caves and, people with no money and no political access who have strange names and speak strange languages. So people say, whatever. Now we're starting to use it on political candidates. So what would stop Trump from basically doing the exact same thing to Biden? It's not a good precedent, and it cannot go down that road. And this is the same scale, in my view, as Watergate. And, the dishonesty as well, where people under oath in secret meetings would say one thing and then immediately leave and go and talk to the media and say the other thing. It just shows you that we've descended to a very bad era of hypocrisy where it's okay to lie as long as you get your ends. That's a system bereft of integrity. And it shouldn't be this way. It honestly should not be this way. So I hope it all works its way through. I'm very skeptical it will. Everything is so political that people aren't really concerned about principles anymore. They just don't care about the truth. They just don't care about integrity of systems. People will do what is ever necessary to get power, and they'll do whatever is necessary to stay in power. And this is a bipartisan thing. Republicans have certainly done some horrible things as well in the United States. So I think, guys, the only way we're going to solve this at this point is a constitutional convention. We have to actually replace the existing federal government with a new structure. I have no ability to vote my way out of this, nor do you if you live in the United States. I live in a blue state, if you live in a red state, as I mentioned earlier this morning. So what does this functionally mean? It means that these elections are vacuous. The system doesn't let you actually pick the people who get to run. Those people who succeed in running are pre-selected. We saw this with Clinton. We saw this with Biden. The only one we've had recent memory who wasn't was Trump himself, and he found a way to work within the system and make himself acceptable, which is why he picked Reince Priebus as the chief of staff and Pence as the VP and so forth, and managed to work his way through that. So the only way we're going to solve it is a constitutional convention at this point, and fundamentally rewrite the way that we elect our officials, institute term limits, change the way that our money works and our budgets work, push more things to the states, especially social policy, so you have more dynamicism there. There's got a lot of work that needs to be done, and it's not something that can be done today, but it will be done sooner rather than later, because America is fracturing. We're falling apart. Wherever you fall on the political spectrum, it's just not acceptable that our cities are burning. It's not acceptable that people are filled with so much rage, hate, and anger, and that it's become a political game to take people and make them hate each other just so that because of that hate you can get wealth and power. All you're doing is you're destroying a great nation, and you're destroying a great people. This is the country that dreams the big dreams. This is the country that gave the world the internet. This is the country that cured the big diseases, that invented antibiotics. It's a great nation. And the world is a significantly better place because of us. But at the same time, we're squandering that greatness, and we're descending into a chaotic division where we no longer view each other as part of a same universal culture, the American way. And now we view each other as a bunch of tribes that have to fight each other for some table scraps. And just today, where somebody said, I didn't earn my money. At the time, my grandfather, wealthy people were admired. They say, well, that's the American dream. Congratulations on achieving it. Now, if someone has money, you didn't earn it. You're not real. You stole it from somewhere, or you inherited it, or you got lucky, and screw your business acumen. We must destroy you. You have to pay your fair share. Apparently, I live in a tax haven. Colorado is a town. Oh, when I say, well, I live in Colorado. No, you don't. You live in Wyoming. That's news to me. I'm on my farm right now. I pay taxes in the state of Colorado. I don't have residency anywhere else. Got a Colorado driver's license, Colorado plates on the cars. But no, we can't believe that, because, this is where we're at. It's not a healthy thing. And if this continues, there will be a civil war. That's what's going to happen. Maybe 10 years, maybe 20 years. But that is where we're being led. No one trusts institutions anymore. No one trusts anything anymore. We're losing our core. We're losing our integrity. And we're viewing people who disagree with us as the enemy. The longer that continues, the worse it's going to get for everybody. So it's got to stop. It absolutely has to stop. It's quite a scene in Washington right now. It's insane. Yeah, and people have every right to be upset. Guys, years ago, if you look at my tweet history, I remember tweeting about a cop who threw a flashbang grenade into a crib, permanently blinding a child. And the cop later on laughed about it. These things happen, and they say, oh, but not all police are like this. And I said, well, the problem is the institutional culture. The war on drugs created this incredible vice wing, and it created an incentive for these departments to get progressively more powerful. Local governance decided to view these people as revenue collectors instead of people who keep law and order and peace. And because the departments never admit problems when they occur, it created a culture of hiding things. This particular officer who killed the person, if you look at his record, he's killed multiple people and many, many, many complaints of abuse. It's a revolving door. And the saddest part of all of it is, this is not just an isolated case that never comes up. We've seen a lot of it. And I'm disgusted by things like civil asset forfeiture, for example. That's another thing that should be protested every day. It is the closest thing to state-sponsored theft the United States has ever come up with, where a police officer can pull you over, find a bunch of cash on you, and say, I'm going to take that money from you. Okay, it's mine now, and the only way you can get it back is suing the government to prove that it's legal money. Can you imagine that, where I, as a private citizen, did that to you? I show up, I see $5,000 sitting in your front seat, your car. I just take it, put it in my pocket, say, well, it's probably drug money. You have to sue me to get it back and prove it's yours. And oftentimes people settle for less than what was forfeited. Billions of dollars every year, civil asset forfeiture. There's many cases. Drywaller in Virginia, driving his car, just got paid for his work, and it gets pulled over. They say, oh, well, that's drug money. And they just take it, move on. It is theft, pure theft. Where's the outrage there? It's not these little events. They're highly emotional, and they certainly should be talked about. But it's the institutional and systematic events that have to be discussed, because those impact the lives of hundreds of thousands to millions of people, from the war on drugs to these types of things. And they have to end. They absolutely have to end. They've destroyed so much and hurt so many lives. I remember in 2012 when rule number 12 was changed as the final censorship of the Paul campaign. Yeah, Rick, that's why I didn't go to the Republican convention that year. We had so many delegates, we should have been able to speak on the floor. They changed all the rules for the convention at the convention without a proper vote to basically silence Paul. And they said, look, if you back off and you don't cause problems, we'll be good to your son and we'll let him be a senator. So he did. But it was fucked up. It was so fucked up back then. So I feel for you, Bernie guys, because we went through it in 2008, 2012.